You ever have a moment so quiet, so plain, that you almost miss it, only to realize later it was the axis your whole life spun on? For me, it was a knock. Tuesday, 7:43 p.m. The kind of Midwest evening where the wind carries the scent of someone's barbecue and the neighbor's sprinklers sing in rhythm. I was grading essays in my den, red pen dancing its usual judgment waltz, when that knock echoed through the house. My wife, Monica, was in the kitchen. I could hear the steady chop of her knife. She always cut vegetables like she was defusing a bomb, controlled, clean, never flinching. I opened the door, and there he was, a young guy, maybe 18. Tall, lanky, awkwardly confident. He had my eyes. Not metaphorically. Literally. My eyes. "Mr. Keller?" he asked. "That's me," I said, already frowning. He held out a hand. "My name's Eli. Eli Brenner. I'm your son. Now, I've had students tell me stranger things. But this wasn't some prank." He had a folded piece of paper in one hand and a picture in the other. Me, arms around a girl I hadn't thought about in 20 years. Jessica Brenner. College. A summer fling that ended with a promise to keep in touch and a real failure to do so. Inside, Monica called out, "Who's at the door?" I didn't get a chance to answer. She appeared beside me. And when she saw Eli, really saw him, the towel dropped from her hand. Her eyes narrowed into steel slits. I introduced him. She didn't yell. Not yet. Monica wasn't the yelling type. She was worse. She calculated. Cold. Precise. A few sentences later, I was standing outside my own house with a suitcase packed like a walk of shame from our 20-year marriage. My son, my maybe son, had given me a room number at a Holiday Inn. And Monica? She called her lawyer before the suitcase zipper-cooled. That night, I sat in a beige motel room with 2 queen beds and 1 unraveling man. I wasn't heartbroken. Not yet. I was stunned. Like someone had pulled the emergency brake on the life I thought was coasting just fine. But that was just the knock. The real storm? That was still brewing. I didn't sleep much that night. Something about motel pillows. They always feel like they've already given up on you. Around 6 a.m., I drove home. Not to go back in. Just to park across the street like some deranged UPS driver watching for movement. The house looked fine. Too fine. Like betrayal hadn't even mussed the curtains. Monica had texted me one thing the night before. "Please don't come back." So I didn't. But I watched. It's a weird thing, seeing your life carry on without you, like a play you're no longer in but still know all the lines to. Eli called around noon. "Still at the Holiday Inn?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, still pretending I know how to digest anything. He was quiet a moment. "I've got something to give you. Can we meet?" I agreed. We met at a diner halfway between the hotel and his school. He looked nervous. Ordered pancakes but barely touched them. "I didn't mean to blow up your life," he said. "You didn't," I replied. "You just lit the fuse." The powder was already there. He slid an envelope across the table. "My mom wrote this for you. Told me to give it to you only if you didn't slam the door in my face." I opened it, read it in silence. Jessica's handwriting was unchanged, messy, sincere, all heart and no filter. "She tried to find me," she said. Said I was the only man she ever loved who didn't try to own her. Said Eli deserved to know where he came from. Said I'd probably be mad, but I had a right to the truth. I was halfway through when my phone buzzed. Monica. A photo. Of a formal envelope. Gold lettering. Fancy script. "You were cordially invited to the 10th Annual Winter Gala, hosted by Whitmore Pharmaceuticals." With a note. "Found this in your coat pocket. Funny. Thought you said you weren't going to the office party this year. Care to explain?" I blinked. Stared at the screen. And just like that, the fuse caught fire again. I hadn't planned to go to the Winter Gala. I told Monica that. Told her I was skipping it this year. Too much grading. Too many headaches. Not enough bourbon in the world to make small talk with upper management and rented tuxedos bearable. But that invitation in her hand said otherwise. "Funny," she texted. "Thought you weren't going." That wasn't suspicion. That was bait. She knew something. And I hadn't even realized I was playing the game yet. So I did what any man in his position might do. I called my friend Paul from the office. "You at the gala last night?" I asked. "Yeah," he said. "Why? You see Monica?" He hesitated. "She was there. Alone." "Alone?" "Not exactly. She was with someone. Tall guy. New pharma sales VP. Cody something." Cody. The name hit me like a rerun I didn't remember watching but somehow already hated. "I didn't know you two were separated," Paul added gently. "Neither did I," said. And there it was. The powder, the fuse, the spark. My life wasn't just unraveling. It had already come undone. I was just the last to know. That night, I drove to her old house again, parked across the street. Lights were on upstairs. And then her silhouette. In the bedroom window. She was laughing. Not crying. Not pacing. Laughing. She had moved on without so much as a stumble. I leaned back in the seat and stared at the windshield until the glass blurred. I wasn't crying. I was recalibrating. Because when your wife's at a gala with Cody, the charming sales guy, while your maybe son eats cold pancakes across from you, something snaps. Not all at once. But the snapping had started. I didn't know much about Cody, except that I already hated him. It wasn't the kind of hate that burns hot. No, this was colder. Quieter. Like a draft under the door in winter, you don't see it, but you feel it, and suddenly everything in the room is off. Paul from work filled in the blanks. Cody had joined Whitmore Pharma 6 months ago, all smiles and slick hair, and let me buy you lunch, energy. The kind of guy who wore his ambition like cologne, strong, aggressive, and guaranteed to linger long after he left the room. He's charming, Paul had said, like that was some kind of apology. People like him. Monica liked him, apparently. I started noticing things I should have seen earlier. Her gym trips that turned into brunches. Her sudden fascination with skincare products that cost more than our car insurance. The way she started using phrases like emotional bandwidth and intentional disconnecting, like a woman who had recently discovered a TED Talk and an exit strategy. Cody was always part of her stories now. Casual at first. Cody says you'd like that new ramen place. Cody lent me this book. You'd actually find it interesting. Cody's wife used to say the same thing. Funny, huh? Except Cody didn't have a wife. Never had. That was the part Paul let slip over drinks. He's single, you know, Paul said, sipping from his glass like he was trying not to drown in it. Keeps it quiet. But yeah, never married. No kids. No ring. No obstacles. Just Cody, waltzing into the pharmaceutical world and then into my house, apparently. I started doing recon. Not obsessive, just vigilant. Monica left her laptop open one afternoon while I was home picking up the rest of my things. A calendar invite popped up. Dinner, 7:30 p.m., Cody, that sushi place you love. She didn't see me see it. I closed the laptop and stood there in our kitchen, my former kitchen, surrounded by cutting boards and designer salt grinders, thinking about how betrayal never looks like a movie. It's quieter. It doesn't announce itself with lipstick on the collar or a scandalous voicemail. Sometimes, it just arrives in the form of a calendar notification and a dinner reservation. That night, I went to the sushi place. Didn't sit down. Didn't storm in. I just parked across the street and waited. At 7:28 p.m., they walked in. Her hand touched his shoulder like it was rehearsed. She was wearing the earrings I bought her for our 10th anniversary. The ones she said were too nice to wear out. Apparently, not anymore. They laughed as they entered the restaurant. Cody held the door open, said something that made her smile the way she used to smile at me, unaware, unburdened, full of warmth she no longer offered at home. I watched them through the tinted windshield. No yelling. No drama. Just my wife sitting across from a man who wasn't me, in a life I apparently wasn't invited to anymore. The worst part? She looked happy. Not ecstatic. Not giddy. Just peaceful. Like the noise had finally stopped in her head and someone else had the remote now. I sat there for an hour, the engine off, the cabin slowly cooling until my breath fogged the glass. I wasn't planning anything. Not yet. But I was taking notes. The next day, I got an email from Eli. Said he wanted to meet again. Said he had something personal to talk about. We met at the same diner, same booth. He slid another piece of paper across the table. This time, it was a DNA test. He'd paid for it himself. Positive. 99.99%. I was officially, biologically, without question, his father. I stared at the printout. It didn't feel like vindication. It felt like being handed a book where someone else had written the first 18 chapters. She'd want you to know, he said. I nodded. I'm glad I do. Then he looked at me dead on. Does she know? Monica. He nodded. No, I said. Not yet. He exhaled. Good. She doesn't deserve that power. That line hit me harder than the test. She doesn't deserve that power. Maybe she never did. After that, I drove, not to the hotel, not to Monica's, but to an old friend. His name's Nate. High school buddy turned private investigator. The kind of guy who still uses a flip phone and calls people kid, no matter how old they are. You really want this? Nate asked, after I told him everything. I need the truth, I said. He gave a slow, knowing nod. Then brace yourself, buddy. Truth's got teeth. 2 days later, he sent me photos. Monica. Cody. At his apartment. Late night. Her car parked out front. A full weekend. Different outfits. One toothbrush in her hand. That was it. That was the final brick. There was no doubt anymore. My wife, Monica, wasn't mine. Not really. Not anymore. And Cody? Cody was going to learn what happens when you build your empire on another man's foundation. Revenge isn't a loud decision. It doesn't come roaring in with a bat and a ski mask. It arrives quietly, like an unwanted house guest. It settles on your couch, drinks your coffee, stares at you while you try to pretend it's not whispering in your ear. For me, it started with a spreadsheet. I'm a teacher. Organization is my love language. So naturally, when I decided to untangle the web Monica had wrapped around both of us, I opened Excel. One tab for Cody, his work address, home address, routine. One for Monica, her phone records, her meetings, her predictable habits that suddenly looked like warning signs I'd ignored for years. One for me, my exit strategy. I didn't want to hurt anyone. Not yet. But I wanted her to feel what I felt. That sharp, slow humiliation of watching someone else live a better version of your life, with your wife, in your house, using the espresso machine you saved 6 months for. That weekend, I went to the lake. It's not dramatic. It's just where I think best. My dad took me there when I was a kid, back when fishing was about patience and not about silence. I sat by the water with a thermos and my old notebook, the kind I used in college to map out short stories I never finished. Now, I was writing when I fully intended to. Chapter 1. Truth. I drafted a letter to Monica's boss. Not a scandalous tell-all. Just the facts. The company had a no fraternization policy. Cody had apparently used it as a suggestion. I didn't send it. Not yet. But I saved it, ready to launch. Chapter 2. Disappearance. The day after I saw those photos, I made myself vanish. Not in a thriller movie way. No fake deaths or passports. Just a quiet removal. I shut off my phone, closed my shared bank account, packed the car with essentials and forwarded my mail to a friend's place out of state. Didn't say a word to Monica. I left the key on the hallway table next to a post-it that read, "You'll want to check Cody's apartment. Front left drawer." Inside that drawer? Photos Nate had taken. And a flash drive with recordings from a hidden camera I'd borrowed from Nate. Installed in our living room lamp a week before I moved out. I didn't even know what I'd captured, just that Cody liked to talk. And Monica liked to laugh. And I liked knowing. Now they could sit with that uncertainty. Let it chew at them. Chapter 3. The conversation. I met Eli again, this time at a park. He kicked at a soccer ball half-heartedly while I told him everything. Not the petty stuff. The bones. "Does this mean you're disappearing again?" he asked. "No," I said. "It means I'm deciding what kind of man I want to be next." He nodded slowly, then kicked the ball toward me. "Can I stay in touch?" "You better," I said. He smiled. It was crooked, like mine. I hadn't realized how much I needed that smile until I saw it on his face. That night, I drove back to town. The house looked different now. Colder. Like it had finally admitted what it was, a place where love went stale. Monica's car wasn't there. Cody's wasn't either. I walked up to the porch, not with anger, but with something else. Finality. Taped to the door was a note in Monica's handwriting. "You're overreacting. Can we talk? Please?" Overreacting. Like her betrayal was a scheduling mishap. Like I'd just forgotten our anniversary or accidentally erased the DVR. I pulled the note down, folded it neatly, and slid it into my pocket. Not as a keepsake. As evidence of who she really was. I didn't go inside. Instead, I walked next door to our neighbors, the Langleys. Sweet couple. We used to trade pies at Christmas. I handed them a sealed envelope. "If Monica asks," I said, "just tell her I stopped by and left this." They didn't ask questions. Just nodded, because sometimes you can see the storm behind a man's eyes and know better than to ask what caused it. Inside that envelope was my goodbye. Not dramatic. Not cruel. Just honest. "Monica, you thought I wouldn't notice. You thought I'd keep folding socks and paying bills while you rewrote our marriage one lie at a time. I noticed. I noticed when you laughed too hard at Cody's jokes. When you stopped laughing at mine. When you started using words that weren't yours and wearing dresses that weren't for me. I noticed. And now, so will you. You've got your freedom. Enjoy it. Just know, freedom doesn't come without consequence. I loved you for 20 years. I was faithful. I was kind. You chose him. Now, you get to keep him. But not my silence. Not my loyalty. Not the version of me who would have stood by while you lit the house on fire and blamed the matches on fate. I'll see you again someday. But it won't be as your husband. It'll be as the man who learned how to walk away. Adam. That night, I drove until the gas light came on. Somewhere past midnight, I pulled into a rest stop and sat on the hood, watching the sky refuse to rain. And for the first time in months, maybe years, I didn't feel like a man being erased. I felt like a man rewriting the ending. And I still had a few chapters left. Collateral damage is a funny term. Sounds technical, clinical, like something you'd read in a business memo or a military report. But it's personal. Always. Every splinter, every ripple, someone feels it. In this case, her name was Deb, Monica's sister, the one who once called me the only man in the family with a functioning compass. I'd laughed. She hadn't. Turns out, Deb wasn't just a bridesmaid at our wedding. She was also a quiet keeper of receipts. Not the financial kind, the human kind. She called me 2 days after I left. I'm not taking sides, she said, voice low and tense. But I need to see you. We met in a parking lot behind a yoga studio. Seemed fitting. She handed me a thumb drive and a paper bag with a sandwich in it. Always a multitasker. You should see what she's been doing, she said. I didn't want to believe it either. But after she sent me a group text pretending you were on some solo retreat for emotional recalibration, well, I knew something smelled wrong. She turned to walk away, then paused. By the way, Cody's married. Quietly separated, but still married. Thought you'd like that little irony served warm. I drove back to Nate's place, the only spot left where I didn't feel like a stranger in my own skin. Plugged in the thumb drive. Photos. Screenshots. Emails. There was Monica confessing to Deb in mid-January that she wasn't in love anymore, but wasn't sure how to let go. That was the same week we'd gone to that cabin she begged to revisit. I remembered thinking she seemed distant, but I chalked it up to work stress. Nope. Turns out she was crafting her escape hatch, complete with alibis and timelines. Then there was a screenshot of her and Cody. A chat. Cody. Does he suspect anything? Monica. Not even close. He still makes my coffee like it means something. That one? That one hurt. Not because it was cruel, but because it was accurate. The bag Deb gave me had a sticky note on it. Thought you might forget to eat. Also, burn it all or bury it. Don't leave it sitting in your inbox. That night, I sat with a glass of bourbon and an open Word doc. The headline read, Evidence. Just in case. Not to blackmail. Not to shame. Just to protect the version of me who still believed in closure. Because people like Monica, people like Cody, they don't apologize. They adjust. They rewrite history and expect you to play the side character in their redemption arc. But not this time. I disappeared from her life, but I wasn't done yet. The next day, I printed 2 copies of everything: emails, photos, calendar invites, security footage stills. One went into a safe deposit box. The other? Into an envelope with Cody's name on it. And then I did something that would have made the old me nauseous. I sent it to his wife. Her name was Marissa. Lived across town. Had no idea her husband was part of a love triangle that didn't even include her anymore. I didn't add a note. Just the facts. Let her draw her own conclusions. Collateral, I told myself. This wasn't cruelty. This was cleanup. A week later, Monica finally cracked. It was a voicemail. You vindictive coward. I can't believe you dragged other people into this. I told you it was complicated. I played it twice. Then deleted it. The next one came 3 hours later. Okay, maybe I deserve part of that. But Adam, we need to talk. This can't be how it ends. It already had. You just didn't read the memo. I let her talk to my silence. Let her fill it with apologies she never thought she'd owe, until the silence itself started echoing back the weight of what she'd broken. Meanwhile, Cody was doing damage control of his own. According to Deb, who was now officially on Team Quiet Justice, Cody's wife had thrown him out. Word at the office was he'd requested a personal sabbatical to reflect and realign priorities. Translation, he was getting torched from both ends. A part of me felt bad. A smaller, pettier part of me felt justified. I didn't gloat, didn't strut. I just breathed a little easier. Then came the final string to snip. The house. Technically, it was still in both our names. But I was done pretending I wanted any piece of it. So I filed the paperwork. Transferred the deed. Wrote her a letter. Monica, you can have the house. Every room, every light fixture, every kitchen drawer where I used to keep my watch. You can have the espresso machine. The garden I built with my own hands. The creaky step you always told me to fix and I never did. It's yours. Congratulations. You win. But I take with me something you'll never get back. Peace. And the knowledge that I never once lied. Sleep well. Adam. It wasn't revenge. Not really. It was a farewell tour. Quiet. Surgical. Final. Collateral? Yeah, sure. There were fragments. There were people hurt along the way, me, Eli, Marissa. But when the wreckage is someone else's doing, sometimes the only thing left to do is walk away from the blast radius and let them sort through the debris. Fallout isn't like fire. It doesn't roar or burn hot. It settles. Quiet. Dusty. Toxic in ways you don't realize until you've already breathed it in and tried to go on with your life like everything's normal. Monica called again. 5 times in one day. No voicemails this time, just her name flashing across the screen like a fire alarm you're already too tired to answer. I didn't pick up, but I listened to the 6th one. She finally cracked her pride just wide enough to let something real out. I miss you, she said. I keep thinking about how you used to put my phone on the charger when I fell asleep. How you'd warm up the car when it snowed, even if you weren't leaving. It's stupid. I should have said something sooner. I should have. I don't know. Fought harder. Then she added, I think I made a mistake. That one landed. Not because I still wanted her, but because it was the first time she spoke like a person and not a character in her own redemption arc. I didn't reply. Instead, I went to the lake again. Same bench. Same thermos. I sat there for a long time, staring at nothing in particular, just letting the air wrap around me like a question with no good answer. That's when Eli showed up. No text. No call. Just walked up like he belonged in the moment, which somehow he did. You always come here? He asked. Only when I don't want to scream, I said. He nodded like he understood. And maybe he did. We sat in silence for a while. He tossed a few rocks into the water. Missed every skip, but didn't seem to care. Then he said, Mom used to bring me to a place like this. Said it helped her think. Said the silence was louder than yelling. She wasn't wrong. Another beat of silence. Then he added, I'm glad you're not perfect. That made me laugh. You thought I was? I hoped, he shrugged. But seeing how you've handled all this makes me feel like I don't have to be either. And there it was. The real fallout. Not from Monica or Cody or even the marriage itself, but from learning that your life doesn't need to be flawless to still mean something. That dignity isn't about being untouched. It's about being bruised and showing up anyway. I don't know what comes next, I said honestly. Me neither, Eli replied. But I figured we could start with burgers. You like Five Guys? I blinked. Is that a trick question? He grinned. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like I was holding my breath. We ate burgers on the hood of my car. Talked about music, old movies, his plans for college. He wanted to study engineering. Said he liked fixing things other people gave up on. Figures. By the time I dropped him off at the Holiday Inn, I wasn't angry anymore. Not at Monica. Not at Cody. They were broken people trying to fix themselves with other broken people. Didn't make it right, but it made it human. Still, not every ember had cooled. That night, I got a letter in the mail. From Marissa, Cody's wife. Her soon-to-be ex-wife. It wasn't long. Just 3 sentences written in neat, looping script. Adam. Thank you. Not for hurting him, but for giving me the truth. You probably saved me 5 more years of pretending. I kept that one. Not because it felt like a trophy, but because it reminded me that some endings are gifts, no matter how they're wrapped. The next morning, I went back to the house. Not to Monica. Not to stay. I just wanted to see it one last time. The garden was overgrown. The front porch light was still flickering like it had when I left. A detail she used to nag me about. Now it just blinked in slow defeat. I stepped onto the porch. Knocked once, out of habit. Monica opened the door. Her eyes were puffy, makeup barely hanging on. She looked smaller. Not frail, just deflated. Hi, she said. Hi. Can we talk? I shook my head gently. No more talking. I just came to get something. She stepped aside. I walked in. Straight to the hall closet. The painting. Oil on canvas. A cheap one from a street vendor in Florence. We bought it on our honeymoon. She said it was tacky. I said it was ours. She let me take it. Didn't ask why. At the door, she touched my sleeve. Do you hate me? I looked at her. Really looked. No, I said. I just finally believe you're not who I thought you were. She nodded slowly. Like that line had been waiting its whole life to be said. Then she let go. And so did I. As I drove away, the painting slid in the backseat like a memory that finally made peace with being past tense. Fallout, it turns out, isn't the end. It's just the air after the fire. You can breathe it, but only if you've learned how to live through the burn. You don't always plan to write a letter. Sometimes it writes itself, line by line, in your head, over coffee, at red lights, at 2 a.m., when your mind starts folding old memories like laundry you forgot existed. Mine began on a napkin. I was sitting in a cafe 3 towns over, somewhere neutral, somewhere quiet. A kid was playing a game on his tablet too loud. The barista was humming something off-key, and yet all I could hear was Monica's voice saying, "I miss you." I didn't miss her, but I missed something. Maybe the idea of her. The version I thought was mine. The us we used to be. So I started writing. Not for her. For me. Monica. This isn't closure. It's a receipt. A list of things paid in full. I gave you loyalty, patience, trust. You gave me distraction, secrets, silence. But I'm not angry anymore. I'm grateful, because now I know what I'm made of. I know I can walk away. I know I can start over. And I know you, really know you, not just the edited version you presented in candlelight or beneath vacation sunsets. I forgive you, not because you asked for it, but because I won't carry this any further. That's your burden now. Adam. I folded the letter, sealed it, and didn't mail it. Left it behind in a library book I returned that afternoon. Maybe someone would read it one day. Maybe it would become a message in a bottle for the next poor soul sitting in silence, wondering why love feels like a riddle. That night, I got a message from Eli. I found an apartment. It's small, but it's mine. He attached a photo, bare walls, a cheap rug, a microwave on the floor. It looked like freedom. I told him I was proud. That I'd help him set up the internet, figure out rent. Be there, in the small ways that end up being the big ones. Fallout may settle, but foundations can still be built on dust. And I was ready to build. It's funny how loud the world gets once the drama ends. For a while, everything was white noise: Monica's betrayal, Cody's smirk, the lawyers, the documents, the echo of slammed doors and unsaid things. But when it was all over, silence. And not the sad kind. The kind that feels earned. I got a small place. 1 bedroom, exposed brick, questionable plumbing. But it was mine. The kind of space where you know exactly where your socks are and the only perfume in the air is yours. I kept busy, taught my classes, took long walks, read books I'd forgotten I owned. Called Eli once a week, just to hear how much older he sounded every time. Monica texted once more. "I hope you're okay." I didn't reply. Not because I was bitter, but because I was finally okay. She didn't need to know that. Some silences are more powerful than apologies. Some closures don't need door slams, they just need stillness. 3 months later, I saw Cody. At a grocery store. Middle of a Tuesday. He looked smaller. Not physically, spiritually. Like a man who'd finally realized charm isn't a currency that always cashes. He didn't see me at first. I watched him compare olive oil brands with the desperation of someone who didn't know which version of himself to buy anymore. Then he looked up. Locked eyes. Paused. I gave him nothing. No nod. No smirk. Just recognition. A cold fact of history standing in aisle 4. He walked away. Fast. I stood there a little longer. Not out of malice. Just to feel how little I needed to prove. I had fantasized about this once, meeting him, having words, showing him who he'd messed with. But the truth? Real revenge is indifference. He didn't deserve space in my day. And he didn't get it. I walked out with a loaf of bread, a pint of milk, and a piece that didn't need punctuation. Later that night, I met Eli for dinner. He brought a girl. Smart. Sarcastic. The kind of person who looked you in the eye and didn't flinch. He introduced me as his dad. Not biological, not long lost. Just dad. I paid the bill. He tried to argue. I let him win, barely. And on the drive home, I finally understood. I didn't lose something when Monica betrayed me. I found the version of myself that wasn't built on keeping peace with someone who mistook my kindness for furniture. I chose to leave. I chose the silence. I chose the truth. And in the end, that choice saved me.